What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Recover Out Loud, episode number 61, brought to you by the Antisocial Network. Yeah, 61 episodes. I didn't think that this shit was going to last longer than 20. But here we are. Here we are. It's crazy. And you know what? It's a good day. Pat myself on the well, I'm not going to pat myself on the back. It's technology did it. That second video played. So we're on a two video streak right now. We're on a two video streak. We'll see what happens next time. Anyways, today I got a very, very awesome guest, very cool guest from Houston, Texas. We got God, I screwed your name up even though you told me. Sri Mahabir. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me on. And I got to see your picture without the beard. That is interesting because I did not expect that. That's pretty cool.
I look like a child. Yeah, I started growing this thing in 2019, 20 no, sorry. Yeah, 2019. I grew about a year, it came down a year. And then one day I was like, I need a change and I don't want to take my hair off. I didn't want to shave it off. And I just kind of was like clippers to the face. And then I was like, man, I look like a child. I need to grow this back. So here we are.
Hey, it makes sense. Whatever makes you happy, go with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're not here for me. We're here for you. Would you like to give a formal introduction of yourself?
Sure. My name is Sri Mahabir, and I am a video marketing producer. I help entrepreneurs create engaging videos that make them money. My team and I have an agency where we take care of all of the social media management, creating the posts, the copywriting. We take care of a podcast like this because it takes time to come up with your guests, the content, and then editing and then turning it into a podcast to upload onto the different platforms and then creating clips from it. Many people get when they think about all of this work, they're like, oh my gosh, how do I do this and run my business? Well, that's where my agency comes in and we take care of all of that.
Absolutely. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. You you live in Houston. What is the weather like today?
Today is, we started off pretty cool in the morning and right now it is 78 degrees.
Man, I wish it was 78 degrees today. I woke up and the house was cold. I was like, oh.
So, what is the weather?
Ah, I was gonna say Alaska. I live in West Virginia. So let's check the weather here. The weather, we're pulling it up. Come on, it's taking forever. 58.
You know what? I love the cold only because it stays forever hot and then dying hot in Houston. So having 58-degree weather would be wonderful.
Uh, I live I lived in Alaska and I lived there for about 5 years. I got enough of the cold and I tapped out and I'm here. So I don't want it no more. You can have it. Keep it. Um,
Nice. Some
yeah,
people enjoy what you don't like, and some people enjoy what you do like.
absolutely, absolutely. So what are some of the things that you enjoy doing on your spare time when you're not working and helping clients out? What are some of those things that you like to do in Houston?
I love sleeping. I don't care what people say, but we all as adults know sleep is a commodity and you really have to schedule that into your life, like create that habit of having proper sleep and rest. And then my other favorite thing to do is cooking. So I do like eating the different foods that we have here in Houston and then coming home and trying it myself. Besides exercising, which is good for your health, I also just like doing nothing. And I know that some people would be like, oh my gosh, don't you want to go see the city? I do. But how many times do you just sit there and do nothing and not feel guilty for doing nothing?
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are stuck behind that guilt wall, saying that I have to be productive, 100% of my day, and it's like, but really, you're going at 100% all the time, every single day. Why don't you just take a break and do nothing?
Right. And then don't feel bad because you took that break. Like, yes, there's that guilt, but then you schedule in this hour I'm going to do nothing. I'm not going to feel bad. This is my daily routine. Do nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's important. Is is to get some time to yourself, some peace and quiet, whatever whatever it looks like for you, and that's part of self care. It's the most
That
important
is
part of anybody's recovery journey is self care.
absolutely. And I like watching Netflix and reading, but just sitting there, just sitting with your thoughts. I'm trying to incorporate that more myself because I find that that's when you can just relax. You're not thinking, you're not doing anything, you're just in the moment.
Absolutely, and so and that time to yourself can actually be scary for some people. Have you ever faced that where it's like I'm here by myself and I'm sitting here just with my thoughts? That's a scary fucking place to be.
It was like that a few years ago. I was scared to be alone. I had to be not I wasn't always alone because I lived with my parents, but I'm saying being alone, just being alone with my thoughts or being alone, just sitting there because it had to have some kind of music. I had to have some kind of Netflix going on. And it was only through the journey of healing that I realized the importance and the impact it has because you get the time to see clarity. Which direction do I want to go with in my business? Should I make this decision to make this investment? Should I stay in this relationship? Business, personal. These are hard things to do if you're always going or you always are feeding your mind when you're allowing yourself time to just really sit down and say, okay, I know what needs to be done, but let me realize this and be clear and just take action.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. You know, that that healing journey. When you start working on that healing journey, being by yourself is very important. To be able to handle those situations. So nice segue. I like where you put it. So yeah, let's talk about it. What was it like, and the hard times for you?
So, when I was younger, I had a brother and he was murdered. I found him. So I never really took the time to understand how this impacted my life because I was really young when this happened. And next thing, my mom's mother passed away very shortly after. She couldn't take the loss of my brother. She never had that happen to her, so she couldn't take it, and then she ended up passing away. And then years of just holding on to thoughts and feelings that I didn't understand during the time. And then when I had my daughter, I was in an prior to my daughter, I was in an abusive relationship, and then my daughter's father was very abusive and he raped me, and so I was living this life that I said, "This cannot continue. I really need a change, especially now that my daughter has entered." And so, yes, I made different choices, but there were still some things that were the same. I would find myself in the same type of relationship or same type of situation, and when she got into elementary school, I said, I cannot live by myself. I want more stability for her and I want her to have more opportunities. So we moved from Miami to Houston. And then when we lived in Houston, we lived with my parents, which then got me to be able to give that stability to her. And then I was able to put her into extracurricular activities. But again, she's being taken care of. Her setting is getting better, but I'm not doing anything to work on myself. I'm still feeling inadequate. I'm feeling that I'm not good enough. There's still issues that arise between my mom and I. And then I'm always thinking, I don't want that kind of relationship with my own daughter. I started volunteering back. This, I did this when I was younger. I used to volunteer at Children's Protective Services, and then we expanded into juvenile detention center. But it was through the lessons, working with the children, that I started to realize I'm connecting with them because I'm seeing myself in them. And it was only in 2019 when things really hit really hard because in 2018, my ex, the father of my child, passed away tragically. So now I'm thinking in my mind, I'm like, this is a generational story. My father's father, my grandfather, passed away, then my brother, and then my daughter's father. And I was like, there has to be something that can be done to change this. And what if we started with me working on this? And it became really apparent that I needed help because I started to cry a lot. I was really anxious. I was really just not understanding, grasping things that were going on in life. And I had a really good job. So I thought, okay, let me start with listening to this podcast with Oprah Winfrey. And it had Eckhart Tolle, who talked about the moment you start working on your mind and you start working on yourself, you start to see things. It's like working out, because the more that you work on yourself, the more that you realize how much weight you have been lifting. So in the beginning, I was always crying, but then later I started to realize, whoa, look how far I've come. And I started therapy. And then in 2020, I realized, you know what? I'm not going to be able to be in a relationship with anybody until I focus on the relationship with myself. And then what about the ones closest to me? So when we had the pandemic, and a lot of people were like, oh my God, I got to be home with my parents or home with my loved ones. How am I going to deal with it? I used that opportunity to start focusing on building the relationship with myself and my family. And it was a little stressful. Don't worry, we all argued. It was funny, or fun times, but we got through it. Also, during that time, I did a coaching program with a coach who talked about trauma, really visiting that trauma, working through that trauma. And then I started to go live on Instagram because I had started a business building visibility. That's when I started connecting with mindset coaches and those working in NLP and neuro linguistic. I always forget the last letter, but really going deep down into that. Why do we act the way we do? Why do we react? And that's when I started to realize, okay, I need to work on my mindset. So I worked with a mindset coach. Then came more therapy, group therapy. Then came more mindset coaching, more working on myself, to the point that last year, when I got laid off in 2021, on 9 days before Christmas, and then I realized I want to be a full time entrepreneur. Nobody teaches you how to be an entrepreneur.
No.
So how does this have to do with your mindset? Everything, because all those stories, all of those traumas, they come up, especially when you're posting or you're going live or doing the business, because you realize there are certain patterns that happen. And I was realizing I was doing a certain pattern. So whenever I had a pain, and pain would always deter me from showing up. It was the pain from the loss of my brother, the pain of the loss of my ex-husband, that I never really took time to face. And I did, that I realized, whoa, plays a role. Your healing your inner child plays a role, because it affects your relationship with your children, and even in relationships with your significant other, or even a business relationship.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the questions I was going to ask, and you nailed it right on the head, was about the pandemic. I know a lot of people went in to the pandemic, and in the recovery field, that was a huge hit for people in recovery because they didn't really understand the concept of being alone, right? I started my recovery at the beginning of the pandemic, so I was like good to go. I was like, I get to stay home. I don't have to be around people. Solid. I'm good at that. Um, but one question I did have is that trauma that you faced in your life with your brother and your ex husband. How did that take an effect on your daily life?
I didn't realize at the time, but the decisions that I would make, like I would find myself in certain situations I should not be. Why am I hanging around a certain type of group? Or why am I dating a certain kind of man? Why am I not thinking that I deserve better? And even until last year, I didn't think that I was good enough or smart enough. I'm not saying that I walked away 100% from not being good enough, but it's that I know that I deserve better, if that makes sense. For a very long time, I didn't see that, and now I do. So when you don't see your value, it's hard to be able to see, like, why would I'm gonna just this is just an example. How would I get Tony Robbins to be my client? How could I get to his level? He probably gets so many people.
Yeah.
But how many people are at Tony Robbins' level, but are not as famous as Tony Robbins?
Yeah.
And if you're not there energy wise, you're not going to get those opportunities.
Absolutely.
So you have to think, you have to realize you can get that Tony Robbins person. It's possible. What do you have to do to get there? What is the work that you need to do within yourself?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you were talking about group therapy and individual therapy and counseling and the mindset coach. What are some of the takeaways that you got from it, from attending those?
So the group coaching, which I did, which was for trauma healing, it was really cool to hear other people's story and how they got through trauma. And then when it was the single therapy, it was good to be able to talk to my therapist, and she had walked me through things. We did exercises, even in the mindset coaching, we did exercises and understand what is laser focus and understanding that do not compare because compare can kill you. But why does compare kill you? And how can you walk away the moment that you do? Because it's not just, okay, hey, you start to compare, tell yourself, no, there's exercises and start asking questions. Then with the group therapy, it was a little bit different with group therapy because she did an exercise where it's a constellation where we don't know the person whose story they want to discover a relationship and why it's so much friction, but we are placed to be a representative of of different people in the story, and it kind of relates to our story. And so for those who are like, oh, this is a little woo woo, it's really not. It's actually you're role playing in some way, but in some way you're understanding like everybody has problems and that everybody has you could see, okay, why did this person have this friction? Like, how did it happen? Where did it start? Where did it begin? It didn't begin just because you were born. It began way before. It's just a familial story that keeps getting carried on to the next generation, because nobody's doing something to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah, you were talking about noticing a trend with your grandfather, your brother, and then your ex-husband. Would you do you think that that's a generational trauma?
I do. And maybe there might be some discussion in the comments, which is always good. But I believe that it's just patterns, right? If we understood the patterns, we may not have gotten in the same outcome. But again, there's another factor. Our time is our time. There's nothing we can do about it. However, while we're here, we can make better decisions. We can ask better questions to
Yeah.
help us make better decisions and ultimately make better decisions for our life.
Yeah. Did you ever take those role playing situations? Do you ever, do one and then you're like you get home and you're like, shit, that was heavy.
Yes.
Yeah. How did you handle that?
After each session, I would always like do a plan it where I would do nothing. I would just kind of process it all. It wouldn't sometimes it would hit me right away. Sometimes it would process and it's like 2 weeks later that it would hit me like, whoa, this all makes sense. But in the moment, like when you walk away from it, you're like, whoa, this was a lot. And I miss it and I love it because I haven't been in a while. But I know that during a time period when I needed it the most, whatever I was there was even probably things that I have yet to uncover that I because we are layers. We're
Mm,
like an onion and we're peeling and peeling. Those sessions really did help heal layers that I may never get to, but because I went to it, it helped me.
absolutely. And it's crazy because those role playing situations can really put you in positions that you never think. You know, you play the role of somebody on the opposite end of your situation. You're like, wow, I never realized it from this perspective. Have you ever faced that?
Oh my gosh, so many times. It helped me see different sides of my mom and my dad and even some of my like my ex-husband, just seeing a perspective that I wasn't seeing before, or even being the person watching. You're like, "Whoa, I never thought of it in that way. And why did I think that way?" So I've appreciated those sessions. And even now, sometimes I feel like people are gonna think I'm crazy, but okay.
I didn't hear you. You kind of cut out a little bit there. What'd you say?
I said, when I talk about those group constellations, I always get like self-conscious because some people are like, What is that?" But when you go through it and you've been to a few, and then you start to see how it can impact your life, and
Mhm.
then you impact the way you talk to other people, then you're addicted because you want to keep coming back. Because next thing you know, you start to the change is real. The change is really impactful. You really don't go back to things that you used to do. You keep moving forward. Like we have those fads of like, okay, you have your keto diet and that it's not like that. It's one of those here's an impact. And if you start to notice that the same story keeps coming up, that means that you haven't healed yet, that there's work to be done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you go through the counseling and the individual counseling and group therapies and motivational coaches, or sorry, mindset coaches. What are you doing now?
What am I doing now is that I actually took a break a little bit from all of
Mhm.
it. Last year I invested a lot. So I'm in groups.
Mhm.
I'm in one group where it's all female and we pray together and there's mindset. And then I do work with someone. She does energy healing and then she's helping me with organizing my business because last year was about becoming the entrepreneur. Like,
Yeah.
how do you be an entrepreneur? There's no school for it.
Yeah.
And this year is becoming the entrepreneur, like running the business, setting up the processes, looking at my time. And she's helping me with, and that's a whole different mindset, right? Like,
Mhm.
okay, I learned how to be an entrepreneur. I learned how my pain and how my struggles and all of that play a role. And this year is about, okay, now let's learn how you put your time together. How do you give space for yourself to think? What do you let go of? I'm thinking of a hard decision that I'm going to be walking away from something very near and dear to me, but again, it's not serving me.
Yeah.
Those decisions are not easy, but I would not have been prepared for it had I not done the work before.
Absolutely. So, how stressful is it being an entrepreneur, a small business owner?
It's very stressful.
Tell me about some of it.
So one part is when you're in the beginning, you really don't know where your sales are coming. So if you are thinking about becoming one, you definitely need to have income saved for at least 2 years because some people get it right away and some don't.
Mhm.
And then comes the anxiety, the levels of stress. Maybe you have a business that just takes off, but then you hit a lull, just a point where it's like, I'm not really growing and it's just becoming mundane.
Yeah.
Then what do you do? How do you exit? Is it time to exit? These are steps that you have to think about. Or do I learn how to take it to the next level? And that's where I would like to be, where I can say, okay, I have this business and it's running. I work like 2 hours for the day, and then I'm focus on other things.
Yeah. Yeah. What is your biggest fear being an entrepreneur?
Not being successful, not making the money,
Yeah.
because the money does pay the bills. However, just not people seeing the value, right? Like, I know I have value, but what if I'm not making the right offer? Except the only fact is I keep going out there and I still make the offer. Alex Armasi says you make the offer 100 times until you get it right. And then you say, this is not the product, because you learn to tweak your messaging. You learn to see, what is the market looking for? What are their pain points? How do I build value? How do I build these relationships so they see that this is for them? And it takes time. Nothing is overnight. It takes time. And once you figure it out, that's when you hear those, oh, you feel like they were an overnight success. What you didn't know is how many times they failed before they got to that aha moment and that right offer.
Absolutely. One of the things that I like to talk to people about and ask people is, how do you determine success? What does success look like to you?
So, success to me is being able to create a business that is able to give revenue for others who are part of the team, but it also allows me to give back to the community. If something were to happen to me tomorrow, my daughter could take over and she would be well compensated because the business is running. And also, the business can be sold so that whatever I gain from it can be used. I want to be able to give back to other entrepreneurs. I want to be able to give to my future grandchildren and their grandchildren. So, success does not look like what other people are going to think the word success is. My success looks like this. So, when I ask that question, I always describe my success. But to others, success could be being able to get up. Like when I had my car accident in December, it was many times just being able to get up and stand up and walk, because that was, some days the joints were hurting me too much and it was hard for me. And for me to be able to get up and just even walk for 20 minutes was a success, or carry a bag was a success. So success looks different to everybody.
Absolutely. I would have to agree 100%. Success looks different to me, and everybody has their own version of success, but as long as you keep that success, um, and you hold it in your hand and you value it, then that's, to me, what is one of the factors that's going to lead you to your success. The other one is goal setting. How hard has goal setting been for you?
It has been, because sometimes I don't see the goal, but in other areas of my life, it's been super easy. Like my daughter, like she has, getting her to where she is now. She's in college, but getting her to get into and being able to believe in herself that she can do what she wants to. That it didn't matter if she went to college or she went to get a certification. The most important thing is believing that she can do it. That's success to me. And that was a goal. I was like, that's the goal. And then for myself and my business, it was okay, I want to be making income every month. What does that income look like? I didn't set a proper goal for that. However, if you ask me, did I make income every month? I did. I have, since I started it 2 years ago. So even with my show, I've been live streaming for 3 years. I believe that the show will go on forever, for as long as I want it to. And I know that I wanted it to turn into a podcast, which will happen. However, some of my other shows, I set a goal for them and they didn't happen.
That happens sometimes. We
It
can't hit the mark every time.
it does. And you learn from it. Every experience is a beautiful lesson and you grow from it.
Yeah. I had a show that I started and I was like, man, this is really cool, really awesome. I did like 3 episodes. I was like, no, I can't keep up at that pace, because it was a late night live show. It was like 10 o'clock, and now I'm on a sleep schedule. You talked about sleep. I love sleep. I love to sleep. I take a nap during the day if I get the chance. Sleep is very important. But before we jump off here, what advice would you give to somebody that is currently struggling in their life, or they want to become an entrepreneur? They just don't know where to start. What would you give to them?
So if you're struggling in life, I would definitely say ask for help. Brene Brown says you're weak. Asking for help is not a weakness. Asking for help and staying stuck sucks dick badly.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's if you are comfortable with your misery, then stay there. But if you want to see what is on the other side of that misery, then do the work. Get the help. Ask. How many times I've had to tell myself that it's just too much. It really is. I just love my company of misery so much that I don't want to see what success and blessings are out there. And I had to change that. So that narrative changed. So that means asking for help. And then in terms of being an entrepreneur, it is, well, figure out what it is that you know that other people keep asking you for help for. Warren Buffett always talks about you end up doing creating a business that you might hate in the beginning, but it pays the bills so that you can start something that you love. And that's what I ended up doing is I started a business that I hated, only ending up starting a business that I love. But I had to start somewhere. And I had to go through not understanding a proper business plan, not understanding how my branding works, meaning like my story and who I serve and how I can serve them. It's always hard. Like, where do you begin? I always say start with the person that you like listening to. There's so many podcasts. I mentioned about Alex Harmazi. He's got the book that he has is a workbook and he
Yeah.
breaks it down really, really easy. And he has a podcast. So it's like you just buy the book and then you listen to the podcast and they go hand in hand. But you can find other people doing the same thing. They're all on Instagram, all on TikTok, all on LinkedIn. Even my group is there on Facebook, which is getting confident on camera. But I also bring in guests that talk about different topics when we have the hot seat, like, for example, branding or video techniques to keep in mind, or even copywriting. So get involved. If you don't have money, you have a phone, you've got all the platforms. There is YouTube University. You'll find a plethora of people. Figure out who you want to invest in. Start small, then go in heavy. Or if you have the money and you're ready to invest in working with a coach, do it, but don't expect instant results right away. That would be my feedback because I thought that that was going to happen last year, but instead, give yourself time in between. If you work one on one with someone, just work one on one with them for a while after you do your research on them. Give it time because it takes time for the first product to come out, the first client to come. When they come, they come.
Yeah. You talked about the instant gratification. I think we all get stuck in that. Like, oh, I've got this great idea. Everybody's going to love it. And then it's like, oh, shit, it doesn't come. But it eventually will. And, I think that that's important that you said that. And thank you for saying that. Where can we find you at? You named everywhere, but
I probably named and name dropped some famous people, but there are also there's also my own friends like Robert Berry, Kizzy Parks. There's Rollis Fontenot. There is Karina Burton, Karina Belmonte, the Alex Armazi, but then there's Robbie Murray. There are all these people that are everyday people that I've worked with. They're amazing. But you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. I do have a free Facebook community that's all about getting confident on camera. And so that means you will be challenged to do videos, go live in the group. You will be able to network with others and even ask questions like, why did you start what you started? And you might find the next coach that you want to work with.
that's awesome. That's awesome. I know when I first got on camera, I was terrified. Absolutely terrified. Now it's like, I don't care. I got sweats on right now. It's fine. I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not here to see my ugly face. They're here to see you. So
No, stop. We're gonna stop that. They're
I
not
know.
here.
I I say that as a joke to myself. I don't think I'm ugly. I'm pretty confident in myself. But
There's about
anyways,
10 people out there waiting to send you emails.
they're gonna be like, "You are beautiful, dude." But anyways, I want to take a moment and say thank you, Sheree, for hanging out with me and talking with me, and talking through your story, sharing a little bit about yourself and where you're at now.
Thank you so much for having me on. And I believe you're a guest on my show soon.
Yes, yes, I am going to be on your show.
I'm
I'm
excited.
about to be everywhere, but I am too. I am too. But everybody, thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for listening in and paying attention. And until next time, much love. Be good.